Hello.
Morning.
I think I got a virus in our work email, so now my entire computer shut down because they don't want it to spread to everybody's email.
If you could also have them so that the computer doesn't turn off and on with the lights every time.
Right?
What is how did that even happen?
So one day I was in here and I was doing a bunch of work and the lights in the room were going down because I was in here for so long, but usually if you like move around or whatever, they'll go back on. But then I noticed that my computer at the same time said power save mode. So I start hitting the space bar in hopes that the computer will jumble up and turn back on. But apparently I should have been doing this instead because once this shut down, it shut down my computer and I lost all my work.
Yeah, I don't does it power your computer completely off or does it just turn to sleep?
It completely powered it down. And so when I brought it back up, and I know everybody's going to be like, why didn't you save it? I should have hit save. And B, why in 2022 are we using a program that doesn't save immediately? Even Word documents do that.
I'm just wondering if your outlet, do you have like two outlets down there? Because I'm wondering if your outlet is controlled by the light switch too.
Oh, I don't know. I can't turn my computer on and off.
You have a computer. Do you have a lamp? We don't have a lamp, do we?
I'm not touching anything. I'm not messing with anything. No way. I looked at him and I go, I swear to you, I did not click on any links. I only check my email. You can go into my email and look. Something's in there.
Oh, and our email is like
spam
like at a corporate security level is like super watched. Like we'll get test emails where like we're not supposed to open it because if we do, then we all have to do this training again. And there's always one person. And I was at that one time where I'm like, oh, this looks legit. And I click on the link and it pops up, haha, surprise. It was just a test. And now you have to take a class.
See, but I don't even know what it would have been that I had clicked on. Like, I don't think I never click links. I barely check my email. I'm getting in trouble for that, right? So as soon as it started downloading, I'm like, man, getting out of here. I better go tell somebody.
When they talk to you about the virus in your computer, you got to look at them and lead off with that. Be like, hey, look, we all know I don't check my email as it is anyway.
If you guys would just send me emails to my Gmail like I've been asking you to from the beginning of time.
Be one of those things like, do I really need to check my email or is this something that you could send to me by way of carrier pigeon? Because that seems virus free. I wonder what the first version of viruses were when the telegraph came out. Like, I wonder if, okay, like as they were deciphering Morse code, do you think that they were reading the word as it was being spelled out? Or do you think they deciphered it all and then went back to read it? And so people would send really messed up messages. And so they're deciphering all these dots and dashes. And then they go back and it's like, Jim's mom is a terrible cook. Wait a minute.
No, I would compare old school viruses to the chain mail. If you don't send this to 14 people, you're going to have bad luck for 5 years.
Oh. And you know what? A little part of you every single time was like, but what if it's real?
My sister sent me something one time. And she's like, you didn't read blah, blah, blah. And I go, no. She goes, you have to send it. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't even need to read it. I deleted it immediately.
I'm a big fan of having safety nets, right? Like I like having a fallback or a safety net. So when I was trying to figure out my spirituality and my faith and all of that, when I was like converting to Judaism, before people were talking to me, because I grew up Lutheran and that's part of the Christian faith. And people were talking to me like, well, like if you're not Christian, then how come you're still kind of like doing these things or going to some of these things? And my answer was because I don't really know. And so until I'm something else, I guess I'm just kind of keeping this in my back pocket in case like I get into a accident or something.
To me and I'm wrong. I don't want to.
Right. I just want to cover all my bases.
You know, right? That if you always have a backup plan, you won't completely succeed in your number one plan.
Huh. I've never heard that before, but that makes sense. So like if you know you have another chance, then you won't try as hard as you need to. I could see that. You know what? I wonder, okay, so I wonder if people who make lists and make plans also suffer or also fall into that category. Like if you look at like, okay, if you come over anytime in the next few weeks, on my refrigerator is construction paper, and it's all things that I need to do I think we talked about on the show. I bought some land up in Sonora, so I'm trying to make this transition. So I've got all of these things, and it's all this very well laid out plan. Are lists different than a plan, do you think?
I think lists are part of the plan.
They're part of the plan.
Yeah, I think the plan has, like a story, a beginning, a middle, and a conclusion. And
Do
then
you do things without a safety net?
all the time.
Okay.
Wait, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I lose this job, I don't have a backup plan.
Well, for me, it's EDD.
Plan while y'all watching in your tax dollars.
My backup plan every year, right around March, April, if I lose my job, is EDD and tax return.
My backup plan
I'm like,
is always
I think I could float for a month or two.
I'm always going to call Mama Madden, Papa Madden. Can you help me out?
Right?
Yeah. Yep. So no,
I'm going to start that.
I don't think I always have a backup plan. No, I don't
For
think.
the major things.
I'm the opposite. I think I'm the never have a plan. Like I'm very spontaneous on things that I shouldn't be spontaneous about.
For major things, I think I always try and have some sort of a backup. Like I'm petrified, like especially living here. I'm not alone by any stretch of the imagination, but my nearest family is 2 hours up the road, and so I've got phenomenal friends in you and Boss Lady and all of the people around me, but I still like at the end of the day, sometimes I'm like, not a whole lot of family. I gotta have these parts all backed up, just in case. So the big stuff, I think I try and keep a backup plan. The little stuff, I think, is where I falter the most. Like I just kind of jump in head first. And then when it all falls apart is when it starts to affect the bigger stuff where you have a backup plan, but it's got to compensate for the stuff I didn't plan for.
Yes. See, I am spontaneous about big things I shouldn't be, and then overlook little things that I shouldn't be overlooking. And then when it comes to relationships, I'm the opposite. I overreact on the little stuff and ignore the big stuff.
Okay. That makes sense too, though. I mean, it's probably one of those things where, like, if you can fix the little things, then the big things may not be that big.
I think it's because we are holding back the big things because we don't feel like we could speak up. So we make a big deal out of the little things instead.
Here's a question. When you get into a relationship, and we were talking about this off the air a little bit, and I said, I think that we're all on our best behavior, and you changed that to something else that made more sense. And I can't remember what it was. But when you get into a relationship,
our best behavior in the first couple weeks, and I think we're just all compromising more and kind of pretending to be what the other person wants to be so that they'll like us back. And I'm not going to do that anymore.
What do you hold back about yourself personally in the beginning where you're like, okay, like I need to let them slowly learn this about me?
Slowly learn about me that I really like my space. No, I let them know that right away. I've cut down a lot, but I never let them know before my total weed consumption.
Okay.
Like, so before when we would talk, I'd be like, oh, I smoke socially. Well, if you live a life
gatherings,
literally as soon as I wake up, my life is social. I'm on the air with you for 5 hours. After I'm done here, I'm usually at a lunch meeting with one of my girlfriends or something. And it was just an all day, everyday thing. I don't smoke like that anymore. But when I was in relationships before, it was kind of something that, hey, you're cool with this, right? And then they don't realize like how cool they actually have to be with it.
Okay. I get that.
And then go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think for me, it's two things. I think it's my impulsivity and how bad I am with money. Like the money thing I lead off with right away. I always tell them I'm terrible with my money. Don't expect anything big or big trips because I am horrible at saving for that. Probably not going to happen. That
I
like right out the gate.
I let them know it took me a long time to get my credit back where it's at, but I can still be spontaneous. And if we get into a relationship and you're good with money, we're probably better off in your hands.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I slowly let my impulsivity out because I know that I'm an impulsive person. I know that I have a lot of energy. I know that I can be obnoxious. And I think I try and keep that at bay, usually for the first couple of weeks until it's just like until they're just kind of used to me, and then I can sort of let a little bit more of it out. But I know for me personally, I can be a lot to handle initially up front, and I know I kind of have to break them in on that, you know?
So you just wait until you have them, and then you just pop everything on them after they're already in love with you and they can't go anywhere.
Just the impulsivity part, just the obnoxiousness part.
Now I'm pretty blunt up front. Like I like my space. If I'm hitting a depression, you probably are not going to hear from me for a couple days. Stuff like that,
That's another one. A
Mhm.
really good one actually is because I know and you
Mental
mentioned
health is a
earlier.
big one, yeah.
Yeah, May's mental health month, right?
May is mental health month, but you have to really trust who you're giving that information to as well. So the last guy I dated, I felt open enough. He was the first one ever that I told before like our first date that I take medication for mental health issues. And he was cool with it, but then later used it to his advantage,
Sure.
which it's hard not putting it in the right. Like I don't want to be dishonest, but at the same time I have to figure out if I'm putting it into the right hands.
See, I've always kind of wondered about that, especially in dating now, because and I know that you and I have different sets of challenges. My challenge is ADHD and anxiety, and I've got terrible social anxiety that I just never really talk about. And going out and meeting new people was also something that was really, really difficult for me. And I have found that for the most part, if I kind of lead off a little bit in, like, hey, I promise you I'm good, but here's a couple of eccentricities about me that, may take you a little aback. Like when we go out, I may be kind of quiet at first. I kind of got to get my bearings a little bit, or I may overcompensate by being too obnoxious because I'm super uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I try and let that stuff out in a very gentle way in the beginning because I feel like if I don't, then it becomes like a surprise and I'm like, that's really weird, and then I have to explain weird stuff,
I pop on them from day one that it's never going to change no matter how rude it is. I am the first one to leave. When I am ready, it is time to go. When I look at you and say it's time to go, it's time to go. And if you're like, wait, babe, just a couple more, it's gonna get ugly. Like that's one thing. Like my people don't like Ghost Madden, but Ghost Madden's intuition is 90% correct. Like she knows when it's time to head out before other things are gonna happen. So I just go with it. You can
And
stay.
Ghost Madden lets you know ahead of time she's going to go into Casper mode.
Yeah, you can stay if you want, but it's time for me to leave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those conversations are pretty good up front. I think I think there's some stuff that you say up front, and I think there's some stuff that you hold on to that like not everybody needs to know everything all at once. If everybody needed to know everything all at once, we would tell perfect strangers everything all at once too. We don't need to do that.
And everybody's different. So, like Tiffany says, you still have to kind of get to know somebody. Like our daughter is battling depression, and my ex-husband is like the only person I have known before her with depression is you, and hers isn't as bad as yours. I'm like, I'm 42. And I never handled it in the beginning. So, of course, mine's worse. So he was like, she doesn't have depression. I know what it looks like because he thought it was me. He saw me as his character for depression, which would get really ugly sometimes. And I'm like,
I read
no,
a really good article the other day talking
for now,
specifically about
before she gets to this point.
yeah. It was talking specifically about children and mental health and how for years and years and years and years and years, we've all been walking around saying children are resilient. Children are resilient. The article is like, no, children aren't resilient. They're survivors. They're doing what they have to do to get through a situation. They're not being resilient. And you need to check in with them afterwards because it has lasting effects.
Yes. Yes. And those are traumas that they have to not get over, face and
Yeah.
have therapy with. And I even said during my healing retreat, like, of course you want your kids to be resilient. I don't want me to be the reason they're resilient. I don't want them to
Right.
have to be resilient because of me. I want to be the one they come to when unfortunately they have to be resilient.
And you don't want them to be resilient because every single day somebody is coming and mentally undressing them and just treating them like garbage. You want them to be resilient because they're getting over some things here and there that they have to get past. But otherwise, like, who wants that for their kids?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't believe that either. I want to love and I want to hug, and I don't think you need to be resilient. I don't think you need to. My son is very emotional, is what they like to call him. And I'm like, is he emotional or is he emotional for a boy?
And
So
does he understand his emotions so he has no problem expressing them?
and I told him, if something's making you sad, be sad.
Yeah.
Be sad. That's one of the reasons I go into a deep depression, is because I don't talk about it and I hide it and I don't talk to anybody about it. So cry it out. It'll make you feel better.
Mornings with Madden and Riley. Why weren't we hippies?
And why Madden is single?
Because you're being picky this time around.
But also because, like I said before, I had one psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. And then a year later, another psychiatrist was like, I don't see that. So I still pay close attention to my mental health and figure out what I need to do and what I can't be doing. And I also go by that meme that says, before you think you have multiple personality disorders, make sure you're not surrounded by a bunch of a-holes.
What's my other favorite one? If you run into more than 2 butt heads in a day, then you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself who the butt head is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my daughter sat down with me and she said she's not hanging out with these people, because they're all too much drama. And I'm like, well, if 100% of your friends are always giving you drama, are you sure it's not coming from the source?
Yeah.
And she just looks at me and I'm like, Mommy knows. Mommy's been there. Like, there's nothing I'm saying to you that I haven't already faced, sister. Stay out of your friends' dramas, because you're the one who gets axed after you choose a side, because they're going to become friends again. And the one that you didn't choose is going to remember you didn't choose her. So stay out of it. Stay out of it. Let your friends figure it out.
I think if parents could teach their kids one thing early on, I wish my parents would have taught it to me. I'm going to try and teach it to my kids. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Walk away from the garbage.
It took me until my adult life to stay out of that. My adult life, it's none of my business what happens between you two. I had one of my closest friends now had another adult woman tell her she couldn't be friends with me because she didn't like me. And my friend was like, no, that's your two's problem. That's not mine and Madden's problem. We get along just fine. And that other adult woman cut her off.
Bye.
Bye. That's what my friend said. Bye. Bye.
Oh, I learned something today.
You what?
I learned something today.
Yeah.
And I know you don't like the movie, but in saving Mr. Banks, or whatever it is, the Tom Hanks movie about Mary Poppins, every time he salutes somebody like this, he's paying homage to Walt Disney, because Walt Disney had all of his pictures where he was holding a cigarette airbrushed. They airbrushed the cigarette out. So to pay a tribute to Walt Disney, Tom Hanks did this in the movie a lot.
See, when I see that, I don't think Walt Disney. I think nasty. Immediately my head goes bad. My head. That's why as soon as you put it up, I'm like, I'm going to let him explain the story, but I really want to text him behind the scenes and be like, put your.
What's the next one that goes up? Tell me, Madden, because
Nope.
this is for Mr. Banks.
That is. Love you, Disney. Love you, Walt. All right, you guys. We have a
man.
we're giving away on the air. We have a million concert tickets. Waz Mataz, Machine Gun Kelly with I.R.L, Backstreet Boys, the New Kids on the Block, Alanis. We can go on and on. We have that. Ciccarelli Jewelers. This is the last week. Tomorrow's the last day, right? And then Friday we give away the grand prize. So you want that jewelry? We're doing Ciccarelli Jeweler. Tomorrow is the last day. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, guys.